right, thanks. Talk to your FME server and get an answer. I mean, simply because if you talk to your computer and you don't get a response, you might look a little bit stupid. So this was already mentioned. I'm a software engineer and consultant at Contera, so I'll skip that. I'd like to start my presentation with a short quote from Business Insider from 2015. It basically stated that the monthly active users for the top 4 social networks have been surpassed by the messaging apps. So that basically means messengers are amongst the most used apps on our smartphones. But I mean, we're on an FME conference, why should we care? These kind of information, these kinds of applications are quite familiar to all of the users because they are using messenger apps all the time. Yeah, all the apps are widely distributed. I mean, even my grandfather can send a WhatsApp image to me, and it's not too hard to do that. In addition to that, we have a new kind of buzzword coming along, conversation as an interface. It's basically that the functionality in messenger applications starts to expand beyond simple text messages. I mean, we have images and voice messages and all of that stuff, but as you can see, for example, on the right image, there's an application from Uber where you can actually order a car by using Facebook Messenger. The application on the left basically shows an application where you can use a messenger to search Amazon for shoes and stuff like that. So basically you have a search engine within a messenger, and you don't even have to switch apps and download anything else or stuff like that. So you can basically have a lot of different use cases: shopping, information acquisition, customer service, and so on. And another thing of the recent years is that companies use messengers like Slack or Microsoft Teams to basically organize their internal work and communicate about projects and stuff between co-workers. So yeah, and obviously these things are coming into our houses nowadays. You can actually talk to little devices and you get an answer, and these devices are coming, so why not just jump on that train and try to use it too. The actual services behind that are usually called chatbots, which are simply conversational agents which try to mimic human behavior by responding with a natural language. So you don't have any really IT-like commands you should insert into your messaging app, but you can just talk like you would talk to a normal person. So back to the question, why should we care? We can talk to our FME server to do basically 2 kinds of different scenarios. We can do information retrieval, which would be, for example, asking for the current license status, job history, schedules, or just queries the documentation, for example. Another way would be to use a messenger to do interaction, starting a process, uploading files, or simply changing settings, for example, changing the settings of a schedule and so on. So we basically try to bring the information into the apps we're using anyway. And how can we do that? We have the REST API of the FME server, and it basically contains all the necessary methods and functions to access all the information which could be accessed via the web interface. So instead of browsing the web and clicking through the pages, you can simply use a REST API. So I'll try to be bold enough to do a live demo. Let's just hope that will work. So I'll go ahead and start with a simple thing like introducing myself. And yeah, mind-blowing, isn't it? Like, all right, let's try to do something more complicated. For example, list my repositories. And the FME server will respond like, okay, I've got these repositories, dashboards, samples, and so on. And as I'm using natural language processing in the background, I could even try to say like, list my repositories. I didn't even manage to spell it incorrectly. So just missing a few vocals there, and it still works because it's not just recognizing keywords. So what else could I do? I can ask, tell me about previous jobs. And the service will go to the FME server, ask about jobs, and okay, I see I had 1,000 jobs, but I got a few failures, so I might just ask, list all the failed workspaces. And again, background, we're crunching the numbers, and I can see, okay, daily total running time, failure by workspace, daily total jobs, and everything went wrong, so I might should take a look at my dashboard workspace because it looks like all of these are failing. Okay, by now I only showed you simple examples how to use text. So let's take it a step further. And I'm simply going to upload a file here, hiking trail, simply a set of coordinates in a KML file. And yeah, here it is. And my application already recognized, okay, that wasn't a simple text. It was a file, and it already asked me, what should I do with it? And I can say, for example, it was a KML file, so why not convert it to GeoJSON? And again, FME Server will take over, download everything, and I get my zip file. But I guess you know all about that. But of course, I can still do the text messaging part, like translate to GPX. And, oh, well, it's still a prototype, so it might not be able to do everything. So let's go back to the slides. Oh. All right, I had a backup, so images in case it didn't work. So how does it actually work? The architecture is quite simple. I have a chat application. I was using Slack at the moment. I do have a backend. Obviously, we need some sort of content, and an important aspect would be natural language processing. To be more specific, I was using Slack, and the communication to a backend, which was Node.js, was based on WebSockets because we need real-time communication, and we don't want to load the page over and over again. I found a nice cloud service for natural language processing, which is with AI, and it basically retrieves raw text via an HTTP REST call, and it provides a JSON-formatted way of understanding the text. And obviously, the communication to FME Server after that is based on REST. So natural language processing, I mean, it's a buzzword which has been around quite some time, but what does it actually do? In this case, I have an example sentence, fetch me a satellite image from Berlin. So you can see over there, I have my input sentence, and the servers basically recognized individual parts, like there was a location, Berlin, and the JSON structure basically has a location in here. I even get a confidence, 93%, which is really good, and I get basically the actual value as an object which can be used quite easily. In addition to that, I get the actual meaning or the intent of the input sentence, which was basically fetch my satellite image. And of course, you have to define some of these intents because at least usually the applications are not smart enough to figure that out by yourself. But if you have a JSON structured response, you can use that on your backend and start all the functions you need, and you're basically able to do all the stuff I just showed you. Like I get an intent, list all of my repositories, and my backend will be able to do the actual HTTP request to fetch this kind of data from my FME server. So as a conclusion, why should you maybe do something like that? You don't have to develop anything on the front end. So this kind of application already works on your mobile phone, your laptop, on different platforms, and so on. The apps are already distributed. As I mentioned, many people use apps like Slack or Facebook Messenger and so on. And you can even support your users by providing context information, as you can see here, like you get buttons for convert to a specific file and so on. And therefore, you don't have to implement all of this stuff in a custom web interface. So what might be next steps? Voice, pretty interesting. If you have natural language processing, it doesn't really matter if you have written text or not. You simply have to use a speech-to-text algorithm, and these are available in the web too. Different platforms. Basically, we would need something like FME for chatbots, so we could talk like to Slack and Skype and Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. So you still have to adapt it for different services, especially if you use buttons, as I just showed you earlier. And it would be interesting to see what else you could do, like more complex requests. Now I just had simple commands where you would, for example, just choose a format for the conversion in your text, but you could also try to include many more parameters, like create a schedule for a specific workspace and provide all the parameters for that. And yeah, so should you convert all of your workflows now to chat applications? I guess not, because you don't have everything you need. For example, some complex applications need a map interface, but I guess it could be nice for some applications where you just want to reach a broader audience, which might not be able to use expert applications, or you just want to use it for yourself to basically inspect your FME server, check for the license, check for failed jobs, and so on. And yeah, as I mentioned, the next step, for example, voice. Just imagine you could simply talk to your FME server using your natural voice without typing anything, and your server would respond to you. So thanks for your attention, and I think we have time for questions.
Oh, yeah.
The online service with AI can be trained. So you can provide a few basic examples. And once people start using it, you can basically check or uncheck if a sentence was interpreted correctly, and your confidence interval will get smaller and smaller. So you can train your messenger.
Any other questions here? Yes, on the front.
You mentioned Skype. You mean that, for example, Skype for Business could be used to talk to any server?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you need is an API. So for example, Skype, I guess, has an API, Slack has an API, Microsoft Teams has a very good API. So you could basically talk to all of these messenger apps. I think there might be a few where you can't do that, but yeah, we'd have to check that. Yes?
So when in the live demo, you try to translate
Yeah.
GPS, and it said, I don't understand you.
Yeah.
That happened. That was basically caused by, I think it wasn't Wait AI that didn't understand it, but it was probably that command that it sent to FME was not mapped to do something, and then
Yeah.
it sent back, Node.js sent back, I don't understand.
I guess I would have to check later on, but you would either have to configure your intents and everything better, or maybe the request just failed. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? I think that's a pretty cool little experiment that you did there. It's really interesting. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.